And the purpose of this work session is to hear from the superintendent's task force and to make any decisions required given their report to us.
I'd just kind of like to check too the superintendent's task force, because I don't think it was legally put forward, because we didn't vote on it as a board to have a superintendent's task force. Therefore, I think that superintendent's task force is actually before the whole. You need four people to do something. The chairperson does not have the authority to do task force. He has authority to do committees. We gave it to you, but you don't have authority to do a task force. So we have a task force, and we've done it illegally. So just wanted everybody to know that I'm objecting to having a task force that was done illegally and inappropriately, and it wasn't illegal because it was just merely against the school district policies. So we have a task force done against school district policies. I just wanted to check that, though I will take part in the meeting.
Was a publicly noticed meeting, and it was not a decision-making body?
Doesn't make any difference. You're making decisions anyway.
Would it make a difference if it was a committee?
So you're making decisions anyway, even though it wasn't a decision-making meeting. So it's just, I just think we should follow the actual rules we're supposed to follow.
Okay, duly noted.
If other people don't want to do it, that's fine.
All right. Julia, do you want to give us a report on where you guys,
Yes.
what you
So
talked about, where we're at?
we met last week and covered a host of topics. The first thing we did is discuss what the charge was, and that it was to recommend a process to the current board, and recommend a process that would result in the successful hiring of a superintendent. And I think a sort of secondary piece of that is also to transition the new board members into the work of the superintendent, the incoming board members into the work of the superintendent, realizing that the process could and likely may stretch beyond July 1st, and also that certainly new board members will be, if there's a superintendent hired, say next month, it certainly will be working with that new superintendent. So it's two goals. So we had a.
I just add to that no superintendent's going to come here without meeting the new board members, because that's the person they're going to work with, so it will make sense. That's another reason, just to support. Thank you.
Great. So we had everybody who was on the task force there. Rita was on the phone. Scott, unfortunately, wasn't able to join us, but we're glad that you're here tonight, Scott, to join the group. So we walked through the, kind of talked about the recruitment, what we thought went well, and some of the things that we thought didn't go quite so well. And most of the discussion that that didn't go so well focused on the sort of latter part of the recruitment, and it revolved around the background check, and on all these issues, sort of what the district role was or the board role was, and then what HYA's role was, and also discussed the background checks, the thoroughness, what could have been done differently. There was a discussion about the fit between the current leads from HYA with our community, and a sense that maybe not necessarily a good match with our community. They did some things well, but just in terms of their interaction with the community was a weakness, frankly, for that. We had a discussion about where we are in the contract with HYA, and we currently have not paid the last remaining increment that is due them. I believe it's about $12,000 that is still owed, and they still have a contract says that they will basically work with us until we hire a superintendent. If we desire that, if we wanted to switch, there's a 30-day notice. But we talked really discussion about potentially changing who at HYA, at least for the near future, recommending that they have somebody different that we work with, because the two individuals that were on point were not the right fit for our community and probably the board to continue forward. Also, the issue of the contract negotiation and not having that done before the final candidate was introduced to the community as a potential issue. So what we tried to do is, and we talked about the factors that led to the sort of unsuccessful recruitment. What could we do differently going forward so we don't repeat them? And so part of the work of the task force was to start putting together work products and recommendations to the board to address that. So I say spent about half an hour talking about that piece of the recruitment, and also we talked about the things that the artifacts from the first recruitment that we felt might need to be refreshed, and one of them was a position description, and the other was the leadership profile. So the position description, there was a sense that it didn't prioritize or actively reflect what we thought was the opportunity that is present for the next leader of the superintendent of the school district. And so we asked Rita and Mike and Julie offered to review the position description and bring some suggested changes to the position description, and also on the leadership profile, which is not a document that the board put together, but one that HYA put together, but the sense that it does need to be updated. One, to reflect the fact that the community passed a very significant bond, which will really provide a huge opportunity not only to go after all the health and safety issues, modernize our high schools, but also the fact that the district's not going to be using its operating dollars for some very significant capital expenses, and that will be a significant piece of work for the next superintendent, overseeing and managing that, and the leadership profile should reflect that. And then in addition, to reflect that there is essentially a resetting of the board with the introduction of 3 new members. So on those two fronts, I'm going to ask Rita to kind of walk through some recommendations on the position description, but on the leadership profile, HYA has agreed to redraft it to reflect sort of the new reality at this point in time. And so that will come back to the board to the current board, which is the decision-making body at this time, for consideration and review before it's utilized. And then that, I'm going to ask Rita to kind of walk through. Everybody should have, I think, version 1 and version 2. Does everybody have that?
So Carrie, I'm going to start off with an apology. I was on vacation when all that happened, and I didn't get back until very late Saturday night. So I started to draft it, and Mike and I have talked about it. Julie did not get a chance to see it. So this is, I think you only got it this morning, or late last night or something. So anyway, this is mostly.
Is this new and going forward? Because this is certainly not what we believe in now on this board. The people on this board don't believe half of this stuff. We certainly haven't acted. So this is for the new board going forward. This is for the new board going forward. It has nothing to do with the board now, correct?
Which document are you talking about?
You're taking a
Pick
Well,
Okay, so this one that's
this one, desired characteristics.
desired characteristics.
Right, as
That's
in, the
the one
board
that
doesn't believe in this
HYA
stuff
came up with.
now, but the new board, people
But
going
Steve-
forward would
Okay.
believe in this.
Steve, just to clarify
Just
here,
checking here.
this was what HYA put together for us, that we as a board approved.
Right, but what we're approving it to, we're not
No, this-
approving it, but this is the new thing that new board people are suggesting, this is what needs to be done. Because right now, we don't, as a board, believe in this stuff.
Well,
We
we're
don't
gonna
believe-
We got
discuss it.
transparency, are you kidding me? This is a joke. And what about believe deeply in educating the whole child? That's a joke, we don't believe in that. And this board does not. We don't, I can read you almost the whole thing, and DLF, we don't believe in it, so I'm taking it as the new board going forward, we'll believe in these things, so that's great.
This is what we approved as a
Okay.
board. And so.
Go ahead,
And
Rita.
that's the original.
Yeah,
The one that says draft version 2, that's the one that I drafted. Most of this language is from me with some edits from Mike. So
so the purpose.
this is intended to be a basis for discussion. So let me just give sort of high level the things that are different. The first big difference is the original document didn't have any kind of framing info. So I added an introduction that provides some, I think, more positive info about PPS than was really in the summary from HYA, and kind of frames what we're looking at, what we're looking for. And these are my words, and, you know, you all may not like them, but we need to start somewhere. So, based on what I've heard for quite a long time, I think we can put a positive spin on PPS's situation. I think we are admittedly a district with challenges, but this is also an opportunity. If we get the right person who is willing and able to kind of take advantage of the situation and really think about it in terms of transforming the district and rebuilding it, then I think we might be able to appeal to a certain segment of superintendent candidates. I'm assuming it would not be every candidate who would be interested in taking on, you know, the kind of tasks that we're talking about. But I think there probably is a subset of superintendents and superintendent wannabes who would find this an intriguing opportunity to make some really high impact change fairly quickly. So that was kind of my thinking for the intro section. The other changes between this and the original, I moved the section on knowledgeable and experienced instructional leader to the top. In the original, it was kind of buried. I added a thing about the bond work that was absent. And the other big change is that the bullet points, I tried to make the language more action-oriented, task-oriented, and kind of focused on my perception of some of the major challenges that need to be addressed. So, for example, in the original, the last bullet point under a knowledgeable and experienced instructional leader, that one says, understands equity and fully committed to continuing the work. And I tried to make that language more task specific. Try to kind of focus on what we are really expecting the superintendent to do, not just understand stuff, but actually do stuff. So those are that's kind of the way I was approaching it.
Okay. Good. Thank you. What I would suggest is, unless somebody wants to suggest otherwise, is for us just to mull on this and email, read to you, and then you could work with your folks.
Well, I think it might be worthwhile to just take a few minutes and have people call out some things, just to
Okay.
have, to see whether there is, it becomes complicated, I think, by email. So I think there's some things that we could discuss, but maybe when we get down to then, we take, maybe where seems to be a consensus and make those changes.
I have two things.
Okay.
And I'm just skimming it, Rita. So is there any place in here where it talks about builds a strong relationship, collaboration with the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that language
Did I miss
actually
that?
stayed.
Yeah,
That's
so-
second page.
So under capable communicator and team builder, the third bullet point.
So I actually had a question about this, just the way, it's like you're having the superintendent defining the roles and responsibilities. And I'm not quite sure that's, they're not quite defining the roles and responsibilities, is there, like, we're both staying in the right swim lanes? So it's a verb issue.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I think you gotta have the word collaboration in there somewhere, Rita. Because it really is a collaborative effort with the board.
Okay.
And,
Okay, that was one of the few bullet points I actually kept the original language, so. My bad.
Okay.
And then the other one, I just think that our last experience even pushes this point further. This says prior experience as a superintendent strongly referred but not required.
Right.
I think you should have somebody, I think we should have somebody who's been a superintendent. This district is not in a position right now to have somebody who's got training wheels on. So that's just my personal opinion.
I would not dispute it.
Yeah,
I agree. So just while we're down on that section, I would say demonstrate a track record of working in diverse, it says urban environments. I would say urban and suburban, and the reason why I add that, if you take, like, for example, Fairfax County
Right.
or Montgomery County, which are suburban districts, but they're quite diverse and they are almost
Big.
urban. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's a small knit. Then the other thing I thought we'd just throw out there is on the leadership experience and accomplishments. So I think too often there's the allure of the national superintendent or search, and I think there is value of somebody having understanding sort of their funding, having relationships here in the Northwest. And I just throw it out, I don't know if people agree, but
Which bullet, what are you relating to?
well, I'm just down
here?
into this,
Yeah.
the, highlight things that are highly desirable. And, well, I'm not disputing that there's probably a lot of great educators out there. They're all working in, some of them working in very different contexts. And a successful superintendent, say, I don't know, last time we talked to somebody from Newton, Massachusetts, and it was like the funding situation was so different and just the context is. So I think there's a lot of value having somebody who understands and has a track record, a successful track record in the Northwest.
That's really limiting.
I
Okay, well, that's-
disagree. I would push back on that one as well.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that can be part of consideration in the process, but I don't think it's necessary to codify it here or judge would rule anything out. I don't disagree necessarily with what you're saying, but I don't think it does us any favors to.
No, because the pool's too small, I mean, there's a lot of people that we'd scared away, even if it's just decided.
Okay.
Speaking of funding, where did we have something in here before about,
The last bullet under a capable communicator and team
yeah,
player.
there we go.
I
Personally,
think that's good.
I would change it funding for Portland schools.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because there's the local funding, and I just think it's, adding that in there, that's a huge thing, it's like also to be the leader
For the whole
at the state
state.
level.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm not sure what you just said.
Funding for public education in Oregon, I'd say funding for Portland's schools. Because that can encompass, I mean, all of our local flavors that we've had.
Multnomah County.
Oh, I'm
Okay,
confused.
guys.
Breaking after Portland
Okay.
schools?
So right here, just-
How about if we say,
Portland schools. Okay.
including advocate for stable and adequate funding from the state?
Well, it's, I guess,
You're talking about, you want to talk about Portland area schools, is that right, Julia?
Yeah.
Am I
I'm
understanding
talking
you?
about like Portland Public Schools.
Just Portland
I mean,
public.
I think this is a huge job, and then
In and of
add on
itself.
top of it, like,
Yeah.
they're gonna be the advocate
Yeah.
for statewide things. I think they could advocate at the state and locally.
On behalf of Portland.
But there's a big local piece, or there has been for the last 20 years, that the superintendent's key to.
So if we can add Portland area or something like that onto the end, I'd like to keep the specific, hey, your job is Portland Public Schools and other stuff, so I'm not sure what the,
Why don't we just say, in funding for Portland Public Schools, period, and get rid of public education in Oregon?
Yeah.
Tom, I
Like,
might comment.
Hold on, go ahead, Roger.
When we interviewed the three final candidates for the last go-around, one of the questions I asked in the free for all was how familiar were they at how public education is funded in the state of Oregon, and how are they familiar with it here locally? All three failed on that question.
Not having reason.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so here's my problem with what you just said. We're not going to be able to get anything from the state specific to Portland. Anything we get is going to be within the context of the state school funds, which is for public education in Oregon.
but we
Well,
have,
actually, we have had historically a whole host of, we had DSEG money, we had the GAP bond money.
We have bond matching funds.
temporary income tax was countywide.
So
Right.
I just, we got, this is gonna be a huge job.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll be a part of any coalition. I mean, COSA does a lot of
Okay.
stuff, and they're all members of COSA, so. But you don't have to be a lead on it.
Well, but I not disagreeing, but there is sort of the sense that, you know, Portland has a major role to play in the state, and we can't take a backseat either.
We could look at it.
So I think you're absolutely right, Scott, and nobody has had that role for a long time. So the last time I saw somebody down in Salem a lot was Jack Beerworth, sort of the 95, 97, 99 sessions. But this district has a lot, some huge issues, and I would think we're hiring to try and
Okay.
solve for those issues first.
Yeah.
But I do think they have a place at the table, is the moment they get things,
Okay, how about this? Advance the interest of Portland Public Schools, including advocating for stable and adequate funding.
There you go.
Great.
Perfect. Because they'll get stuck in it. Doesn't matter.
so what do people think about the term change agent?
Where are you?
Where,
Oh, it's the
In the intro.
third paragraph.
The first page.
I'm sorry, third paragraph at the very beginning.
I would just take it out. I think
Transformational leader.
transformational is the important part. I don't know, they're going through so much change, I'm not sure change agent is.
Just take out that term.
Will,
And it will be.
will lead
Can
PPS
restore
as
PPS.
and
Yes, I don't have an issue with the concept, I just think people will think there's like, one more change agent.
Right.
initiative overload.
Yeah.
Right, right.
That's what I'm saying.
The lead PPS isn't effective.
Got a lot of change going on.
How about if I just take out the change to school can,
Restore.
with, and
The idea
Yeah.
that it will restore.
will restore.
I would say will lead PPS as an effective student-focused organization.
Restore.
Yeah, it's,
I didn't like it either, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
finish.
just, will lead as,
No.
Well, we don't need to wordsmith
Right,
now.
right.
Overall, I think this is really great. Thank you, Rita.
yeah.
And the rest of that team.
You know, one thing that isn't really in here, and it would probably be in the manager section, is, you know, recruiting, retaining, supporting, nurturing a strong team. Yeah.
I thought I saw that.
Not, I mean,
Well, this is building supervisor, less management structures.
Okay, so under a capable communicator and team builder, the second bullet point.
strong management team, but not just management, I mean, also encompasses, you know, professional development throughout the whole organization.
Well, you want to make sure that your superintendent's at the right altitude.
Right, but that's an important
So if you're
piece of the whole.
So I would assume that the strong management, the district management team, then that cascades down.
I don't know if
What's the
everybody
piece you're looking
thinks.
for? Professional development, is that what you're concerned about, Amy?
It's,
Did you
sort of goes back to the, I forget where it was, where we were talking about continuous improvement, you know, throughout all levels of the organization. In terms of support, building, supporting a team.
More like systems thinking.
I don't know, people can, it's sort of encompassed.
Well, I heard a human element that doesn't amount.
Yeah.
About systems,
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it would help.
So I'm curious what people think about the last bullet on an effective systems thinking manager who is willing to commit to remain in Portland for at least 3 years in order to complete organizational transition.
I'd be a little, just with a lawyer hat on, I'd be a little hesitant to ask someone to commit for 3 years. It's almost like
Okay,
a promise on our side that they'll keep them for 3 years.
Okay, how about, because I wondered about that. Is willing to consider remaining?
It's our expectation. I mean,
I think it's implied.
Stephanie, I'd be a little over the top on that.
Well, I mean, I just think if it, once you got into some sort of negotiation process, that would be the question is, are you paying for a commitment for a certain amount of time? And if so, then what is that going to cost you in that, to guarantee that, right?
Right.
Okay, and these are
Well,
desired
right,
characteristics,
right.
so there's nothing, but personally, I think it's important to have some indication that we want somebody not to just blow in and blow out. That especially if we're talking about a transformational leader.
Everybody feels that way.
I know, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
All districts feel that way until they get here and then they don't, and they don't work out, and then you don't want them here for the
3 years, 3 years is a low bar.
It's, I mean, it's a 3-year contract.
3 years is the average.
Yeah,
It's a 3-year
Yeah, so
contract.
they're signed, right.
But ideally, 3 years, I mean, I would change it to something like, is willing to commit to complete the organizational transition and
Yeah,
build a
that's
sustainable
normal.
structure.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that just implies that's not gonna happen in 6 months, or, I mean, even a transition and then to build sustainable, I mean, just to hire your team, get the ship.
The national average is 2.3 years.
there you go.
Thank you. It used to be 3.
It has gone down recently. It went
Our
up,
job.
and now it's back down again.
Oh, then 3 is way too optimistic.
Well, that's
Okay, guys,
Rita.
is willing to,
Do we even want to state something?
Well, Julia, I do not disagree with what you said, as you said it, but I also personally like the presence of the number 3. Given what the average is now, I think we want people to know we're expecting you to do better than that.
So I don't think we've had a superintendent here for less than 3 years. I mean, who was a permanent superintendent since, Steve, you're gonna know.
Vicki was 2 years.
No, Vicki was 4 years. She was 4 years, 4 years.
It's not how long they stay, it's the quality.
Pardon?
It's not how long they stay, it's the quality of the person. It would be nice to have a high-quality superintendent, since we haven't had a really high-quality one since 1990.
Well, what is the downside of putting a number in? What's the concern about putting a number in there? It just,
I mean, 3 years sounds really crappy to me.
because it's too low.
Low bar.
I mean, I think
That's right.
ideally it's like 5 or 6 is
Yeah.
the minimum.
That- okay.
Assuming they're a good superintendent, you don't want to keep
Right.
somebody around just because you're trying to turn around.
Right,
5
we
or
don't
6
want to
years.
say 5 or 6, do
I mean, it's sort of like a commitment to the longevity needed to implement effective, sustainable systems, something along those lines. Without a commitment on a number, or
Got
you
enough to
can,
work with, Rita?
Yeah.
Or you don't need to wordsmith it anymore?
okay,
I mean, do you have enough to work with?
well, I'll come up with something.
Okay, all right.
Well, are we saying we're going to take out a number of years, we're just going to keep it down to?
Okay, so what I heard was take out a number, emphasize the complete, the transition, and build a sustainable something, structure, something.
Complete organization.
Then you clearly
Necessary
could
to build a
have
complete
said
organization
commitment to one, yeah.
transition, blah, blah,
Okay.
blah. Long term. For the time necessary.
All right, anything else on this before we move to our next item?
Paul, did you have anything?
Nope, I'm good with that.
Thank you, Rita. That's fine.
Anything else, Steve?
I think it's a lot better than what we were working with.
Okay.
So in terms of
Continual improvement, call that.
Yeah.
In terms of the leadership profile, I'm assuming people haven't read it in a while, but if, and again, it's not ours, but we can ask for changes. If people think anything was beyond the reset of the board and the bond, whether we think there should be recommended any changes, I guess I would ask for people just.
There's been a lot of work done since that has been, we're in a totally, I mean, I view we're in a different place than that snapshot. I haven't read it.
So there's the public summary that you.
That's the distillation, yep.
What besides the bond?
Well,
What do you think, what are the things you're thinking of?
Organizational.
Yeah, I was thinking
Changes.
Oregon stuff that Bob and you has done, the bond, the board. So those are the 3 things.
The other thing that I think is missing from there is why I wrote that intro section.
The positive.
It is not it's pretty negative. And, you know, I can be pretty negative, but even I think that's negative.
Did they interview you, Rita?
They did.
Page 2 and 3?
And 4 and 5.
Are you talking about the higher?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was definitely negative.
Yeah.
Because I think we do have, you know, on a good day, we do some good stuff. And we do have like these embedded resources that can be used, that need to be used. And none of that appears in
Yes.
So the
You're
whole-
voting for it.
Was that the HYA one that they,
Yeah.
The leadership
throw the whole
profile.
thing in the garbage can, it's right back there in the back, usually.
So all the
Or
input
put
from
in
the.
recycling, which is
I don't
better.
think so.
Toss the
So all
whole
the
thing,
input
it was
from the
garbage from
community?
beginning to end, unbelievably bad.
All-
And rewrite it with Portland is a wonderful place, because it is, this is a wonderful job opportunity for somebody. They're coming in with all sorts of great stuff to back them up. A lot of terrific people surrounding them, and we should be reflecting that. I'm sorry, it's crazy. I mean, Portland is not Nirvana or anything. I mean, we have all sorts of problems, but it's a wonderful opportunity for an administrator to come in this district. Gee, May is a great place. That HYA stuff was horrible. Throw it in the garbage.
I'm sorry, are you being, I can't
Yeah,
tell, are you being serious?
I'm being dead serious.
Okay.
The HYA stuff was horrible. Disgusting.
When it was first introduced, there was a fair amount of feeling on the board that it was overly negative.
It actually was
Some of that may
worse.
have worn off as people have forgotten. And comment.
Just if I could just provide a counter perspective, I went to almost all of the public sessions that HYA conducted in the various schools, as well as had 1 hour alone. And to me, though I thought it was pretty accurate from what they heard.
That's what it purports to be, is a distillation of
Correct.
what they heard.
And I would say that an incoming person should see the 2 external audits that were done, and that, at least the raw data, if not that summary, if the board isn't comfortable with that. All they did was capture what people said.
Yeah.
Right, but the question is, do you want to put out what people said as your thing? And the answer is, not really. Sure, there are challenges. There's some terrific challenges. I mean, I can list 100 of them.
Transparency,
In
Steve.
5 minutes.
I know,
is one of
transparency.
them. Absolutely. But to have that as be the focus, yeah, there's challenges, but a lot of people enjoy working with challenges and trying to change them and make the place better. And the opportunity to do that is what's fabulous in Portland. I mean, it's absolutely, you have Rita said it very well in her campaign. I can't remember the words though, where she said, why don't you, how come we don't rebrand it as
Parent engagement.
Yes.
I can give her
exactly.
speech.
It was marvelous. It was, and I think she's absolutely correct.
Erase the
Yeah, it's not, yeah, and the superintendent should be aware that this is a difficult thing. Now, it's not get some person coming in here who believes in unicorns and stuff, but we want somebody who believes in a challenge and is willing to do it. And you got stuff to work with in this district. You got a new bond. What do we got? 80%. We're one of the top in the country, I think, for children who go to public schools in the school system in a major city in America. We're right up at the top. We've got long lists of people who are interested and willing to work. We have a new board coming in. We have all these wonderful things that you could take and make this challenge go.
So did
We
you
need
guys,
somebody to do it because we kind of sit
Yeah.
around
I guess
and
what I would
twiddle our
say,
thumbs.
just
Did-
looking at this.
did the committee talk about this task force?
We did, and we thought
And-
that it was overly negative and that it needed to reflect at a minimum the bond, and that we were recommending that the bond and the board be set. But I do think it's a good, I don't think I'd throw it out because it's, to your point, I think those things are true, but I also think by omission, it omits the positive. If I look through this,
Right.
I don't see like the things that I think that make Portland like an amazing district or that does amazing things with some groups of kids.
Oh,
And
we do some wonderful
It's
things.
unbalanced.
yeah, so I think,
So the question is, how do we want to do some kind of, essentially a SWOT analysis as the introduction that says, hey, we've got some good things going, and we've got some things that which Rita did in kind of 2 paragraphs or 3, to flesh out that context and include that as, and by the way, reading through that, like I would read a bullet point title and then there'd be stuff under it that I couldn't relate to the bullet point title. You know, the content I've heard all over this district. That wasn't the problem, it was how it was organized, didn't make sense to me. But to include something like that as an addendum, as a reflection of, hey, one of the challenges is there's a great deal of distrust for the district and the community. As one issue that that's a challenge for all of us. But do we want to cast that as part of a kind of a SWOT so that we do list assets as well as challenges?
Yeah, I think we have to. I mean, that was community,
Yeah.
it was gathered from the community, that's important, that's vital, that's relevant, we have to have it. But I mean, it could certainly be presented differently and couched differently. Starting with the positives.
It was questionable how they came.
Well, I didn't go to any of the forums, but I also think it's somehow, the way that you ask the questions can elicit either, and then just like who happens to show up. I mean, one of the things that we heard in the task force is one of the positive things was that there were a lot of people who weren't the usual suspects who came to the meetings. So that's,
Yes, true.
yeah.
I was on 3 different ones, so I can attest to that.
You're one of the usual suspects.
Yeah. But, you know.
Like
and-
new people.
And I do think it's a positive thing that it's indicative of the community involvement in this district,
Right.
that people bothered to give their input to and share their concerns, you know.
Yeah. So,
So what's our next
well, it's interesting because some of this is kind of a combined assessment, then it wraps in the sort of desired characteristics. So I almost think it's
exactly.
we take the redraft of the
Job description.
job
Right, yeah.
description.
Clean that up,
You
yeah.
provide the overview of some of the issues that were raised in the community, but you also provide the assets that maybe were raised in the report.
So who would do that, HYA or us?
Well, I think-
HYA.
HYA.
No, we don't have them.
But we haven't, so we kind of glossed over at the beginning, what is our next step in terms of figuring out whether we can get different personnel from them to move forward?
HYA is open to, they're like, if you want somebody else, that's definitely a possibility. And, I mean, pardon?
Let you guys do it. HYA has, in my opinion, this is my opinion, so don't get sued, have no idea what they're doing. Totally lost.
Are you
Look how the-
creating a
look how
task
the
force,
search came
Steve?
in. Huh?
Steve, and so I think what's on the table is that those 2 individuals who led that process, I think we all agree with your
And they
assessment.
sent us their 2 best people, didn't they?
No.
So they didn't send us their 2 best people?
No, they didn't.
I haven't seen the other people, I don't want to do it, I know these people on this committee can do a good job.
So
Why would
what-
I want to form it
Right.
out to somebody who don't
I-
even know, who has never been to Portland maybe in their entire life?
Well, I think the issue is if it were our full-time job, we could do a great job, but I don't
Well, if
think
you don't have
anybody
enough
has.
time, maybe they could, there are other people who would.
Well,
I've been
don't
asked,
think-
I could be on that
I
committee,
do
if I
think-
have time to do it.
I do think there is a role for an external party. And at the very minimum, I think one certain way to make sure our calls don't get returned is if you have somebody from the board calling a sitting superintendent. So I do think there's some value of having a third party reach out. I would recommend a much more hands-on approach by the board to the extent that people have the time to do that.
I wrote a section of that,
You wrote a section of what?
of that HYA report, and got that passed, so it was fairly hands-on. What I'm suggesting is that if we need somebody like that, then we get somebody in who is not HYA. It's just totally, I mean.
I'm fine with
just
having
look at
them
what we
rewrite
got,
it and.
look at what we got and go from there,
go-
take a look and see, and why
I'm
get
fine
them
with
back
having them
again?
rewrite it, I mean, we're gonna see it again and fix it anyway if we
Yeah.
don't like it. So,
I'd say, I mean, we still are in contract with them.
Okay.
We could use
That's
it
a
as a
mistake right there.
test,
Starting point.
like if they,
And we can
if
fix
they
it,
don't
I mean,
come up with
it's
something
just, they can
like
take
it,
a
you know,
first crack.
And we are looking at different staff too, right?
For HY, yes. I mean, we've been pretty, so I,
You've never been to Portland.
And they,
Your
well, they
staff
have
have never
people
been
who
to
are
Portland.
in the region.
In Portland?
Yep.
Who do we have from HYA in Portland?
well, they're not
Tell
in
me
the-
who
in
it
Portland,
is.
but they're people.
They don't live in Portland, that's my point.
They
they
don't
brought
live in
somebody with
Portland.
them the first time.
What do they know? I have good friends in Eugene who are super active in education in Oregon, and they don't even, they can't even tell you who's on the school board in Portland, they can't tell you nothing about Portland. And they're in Eugene, and they're really smart at the University of Oregon, they know nothing. To get another outside person in here to do this again and spend that money, you're saying we get it free, is that why we're doing it? Because we get it free? We're doing it 'cause, well, then, give them and tell them to redo it and give them part of their money for that, and then we can redo it when it comes, you guys redo it when it comes in. I have no problem if we're cheating HYA to some degree, that's good.
Well, at a minimum,
You got it coming.
at a minimum, they're gonna be working for the district for another 30 days,
Yeah.
because the contract has
Well,
30 day.
And do we have to fulfill the contract?
Well, we have to
fulfill
give,
that contract?
I have the contract right here.
I
We
have-
we have to give them 30 days, that's what the requirement is.
And tomorrow we give them the first of those 30 days. right?
Well, I guess what I would ask is their, it's the current board's, call what happens, I mean. Pardon?
Prerogative.
Right, I mean-
What was the, did you guys talk about this issue and land somewhere?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we landed somewhere, but,
We
I
recommend
don't
it's-
think staying with HYA with more board control, with new staff, because we didn't want to start over with the
Start
new.
whole,
Yeah,
and more new,
and
more
like
resources.
Julia
And they owe
said,
And they owe it.
yeah, like Julia said, there's an advantage to having the contractor involved.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I agree.
To begin with. Are you
I mean,
Paul?
I mean, I don't see it in,
So make a motion.
it's clearly your,
Yeah.
your prerogative, but I can't see switching off in the next 30 days, because by the time you get somebody new, then you're gonna be starting over again.
And even
Now,
I agree with that, who was not an
We need
HYA
a
fan in the first place, but this was going to, I mean, there's already work that's been done, as long as, I mean, we have new people.
so let's talk about the, maybe about two of the other places. So the issue of the contract, that's something I think the board can completely take back from HYA, and that's not something that they need to be involved in.
You're
There's
talking about the superintendent contract.
those
They
might-
weren't really.
contract.
They weren't.
Well, except for in their process, in their plan, they say before a finalist is announced, there'll be the terms negotiated, and that didn't happen. So maybe it's the bad on the board,
We
but,
announced the finalist.
pardon?
We announced the finalist.
Right, and there wasn't a contract or the due diligence done. But their plan, the one they have, they say that will be done, so they didn't,
There weren't any questions around his contract anyway.
pardon?
There were no questions around his contract.
What do you mean?
There was not really all that much to negotiate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Outside work?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that was, but
well,
what's
okay,
the point
well,
here?
I mean, Pam, the thing is, if they had, for 8 weeks, we haven't signed a contract yet, so there wasn't really an issue?
I didn't feel it was an issue, though. I thought that got resolved pretty early on.
What? I'm sorry, Ken, I didn't hear
I said I thought it was resolved pretty early on.
you.
Outside work. You need to have all your attention focused on Portland Public Schools and
That's
not
what-
on outside business.
That's what we said, that wasn't the approach he took in negotiating the contract.
I'm just saying, the community was told for whatever 8 to 10 weeks that the reason why he wasn't final yet was there was no, the contract was being
And
negotiated. So
diligence is being done.
I think it was
Both
the due
those.
diligence that really.
Okay, well-
It was both those things.
the community can only go on what was being
No.
said.
So,
Well,
is what was,
and,
but it's the due
I
diligence
remember what I
that's the main
said.
thing.
but so, what is,
So the recommendation is,
Yeah.
if you stay with HYA, that the board be very hands-on, and that we set, that the board set the terms, a range of terms at the front end of terms for the contract and have that completed before anybody's introduced as a finalist or brought to town as a finalist or finalists. And that on the background check, there was a discussion that they did what they said they were going to do, although they did it later in the process. Well, right, okay, so my understanding, I mean, you said in the meeting that they said that they go back 7 years, and it turns out that there were issues
They just didn't find it
prior, prior.
that they should have found.
Then you go back 7 years. It was over 7 years, is what you're saying.
Well, that's,
I think we should get rid of them as quick as we can, don't give any more business, and move on to somebody else.
Okay, I don't, if you want to make a motion?
Yeah.
So, okay, is there a second?
Sorry, what was?
Yeah.
Well, I know.
So the motion is to get rid of HYA right now.
If it's not clear to me, it might not be clear to anybody
Yeah.
else.
Thanks.
I understand.
to give them 30 days, start the 30-day clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Let's get a second, see if there's a second
Okay.
first.
I would like to discuss some things, so I would like to second that.
Okay.
So if HYA is retained, do we have to pay him any more until? That's it, unless there was some kind of change order.
Expenses.
Yeah.
Expenses for flying people in,
Yeah.
people who are flown in.
We owe them some money, right, we have to pay what we owe.
But in terms of the
If
base.
we hire some, if we successfully hire someone.
Sorry, Scott, I know.
No, that's okay. Okay, so I was trying to figure out if there was a sunk cost
Yeah.
issue
There-
here.
Yeah.
There is a sunk cost issue in the short term, in my view.
If we re-engage, we do not have to pay them anything more than the expenses. Or if we continue our engagement.
And the other side, is it worth continuing with somebody who didn't exactly do us any favors?
That we're talking about.
So I will step back and you guys debate away.
Following up on that question, Scott, Julia, in the contract, at this point in our relationship with HYA, does that 30-day window make any difference at all to anything? Did we give them 30 days notice and turn around tomorrow and start dealing with another firm, for instance? Do we incur any more
They have an opportunity to cure.
any more money?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Or
Stephanie.
You've got the contract.
Is there an
The-
opportunity
here's-
to cure
here's
in
the-
that contract
Here's the one thing,
after 30 days notice?
Pardon me?
so here's the one thing, if, the, that I think we should get counsel on, is if any of the candidates that were introduced to the board or reached out to through the HYA process, they may, and the district switches off to somebody else, they may have the ability, standing to come back and say, you hired somebody that we put into the process, and you have to pay us the final payment.
Which is how much money?
$12,000.
So, pay it.
So here's where my head's at, is that there's a short-term game plan and a long-term game plan. Short-term game plan is there anybody, Paul,
Sorry.
back to your attention, please.
No, I,
Okay,
yeah.
because it's his motion. A short-term plan is to see if there's anybody who, through this process existing, that would be interested, that we want to take a look at, that potentially could be a superintendent. If this short-term plan does not come to fruition, then there's going to be a longer-term plan, at which time there would be an opportunity to go with a different search firm. But in the short term, given the sunk costs, given the issues that Julie just raised about some of the individuals who we may want to reach out to,
There's only one, and he withdrew. So the one guy withdrew.
I don't see
And that would be
any-
the only guy that anybody with any sense would want to reach out to. And so how does that run? If the person withdrew, do we have to pay HYA if the person withdrew? So on the end of their contract, if they withdrew, they're no longer with them if they withdrew from the process, so we shouldn't have to pay them, right? I don't know, we have a lawyer. What is that?
So maybe,
So we need to vote.
maybe a practical way to look at it is, do the
Voted
board members, does the current board want to try and do something over the next 30
Yes.
days? And if they do,
Let's move forward.
this, it probably
Yeah.
makes sense to do it with the existing firm, but a different individual who's a better fit with the
Yeah.
community, right?
Yes.
Right.
So,
And who knows, the new two people they bring may be a great fit.
okay.
Right.
I don't know.
So let's close this now. All those in favor of Steve's motion to immediately withdraw from HYA engagement, saying yes? Yes.
Yeah.
2. All those opposed? No?
No.
No. Okay. So we have that plan.
So I'm going to request that the board ask Stephanie or whoever the legal counsel would be, is to get some clarity so the district has, so the board has the answers to the question on if you decide to next week, in 2 months, and can you just end it?
Understand what our legal options are.
Right, because I think you want to know the answer to that question. And you want to know it.
So Stephanie, do you need-
I'm happy to do the analysis.
Okay,
I just
great.
am not prepared to do it all.
No, of course.
Are we going to have it done in-house or are we doing that out? In-house?
Listening and having followed this process from the beginning, I'm here from this discussion. It seems to me that you're making an assumption that your only pool of prospects are those who already were in the pool in the first place, who
No,
mostly
no,
were
no,
washed out.
No.
Absolutely.
No?
No.
Okay, good. Secondly, my assumption is that so far the only thing I heard the third party doing is calling potential prospects and maybe rewriting something.
You mean moving forward?
Yeah, it sounds like, is there an implicit assumption that you're gonna do another national search with another search firm? That's what it sounds like.
My particular motion didn't have anything to do with whether it didn't do another search or not. If whatever search, I didn't want to do it with those guys.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next topic.
So the terms of, so this goes right to the contract.
Hey,
Oh, sorry.
Timing,
Oh,
because I get questions about time.
yeah.
Okay.
What does that mean?
We'll talk first about timing.
Can I just do terms first? It's not on there.
Okay.
Because
It's a timing issue to do terms first.
you see what's an issue. Just why I have it in my brain. So one of the issues as part that we discussed is there was a sense that the pool that we got was relatively weak. And one of the reasons for that was, one of the reasons was that the compensation wasn't competitive and wasn't enough. If we wanted a sitting superintendent, that needed to be increased. And out of that, Paul's done a whole host, a lot of work. Scott, you've been somewhat involved in emails, but what I'd like to suggest is a
lot of work on what?
just on what would be a competitive range for terms for the new superintendent, because the sense is, if you don't change it on the front end, that you're narrowing the pool before you even get out there. So
I think that was evident from our
what was the range?
There wasn't a range.
There wasn't a range, there wasn't a figure?
Like people knew what the
But people,
existing,
people have,
it was, the existing salary was,
So we couldn't possibly narrow the field if We didn't have a,
But we didn't put out a number.
we didn't put out a number, the number
Okay,
couldn't
but
have narrowed
what
the
did the
field.
recruiter
According to
say?
the
It's another
recruiter,
good way to do it.
according to the recruiter, Portland was notorious for paying low salaries.
And absent any other information,
Yeah.
it would be probably going to get similar to what the superintendent who'd been there 10 years got? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well,
And
all you
they-
have to do is Google the fights that went on about raising her salary to, whatever, it ended up 240 something.
And they asked people what their requirements were.
And then Bob was in it, what did we end up,
Oh, we
250?
didn't go that high, I'm sorry.
248, something like that. So.
Well, I would like to propose.
But I also have a ton of research on that because I did it all already, so happy to share that with you as well.
Great, so I think it would be good to get that nailed down because I think at least a range that the board is comfortable with, because otherwise it's going to be left on people making assumptions that may or may not be true.
They also reported to us that south of 300 gets you a different tier than 300 or slightly above.
So the Beaverton superintendent
Right.
is at 309.
Yep.
How long is he gonna last though? Maybe not.
And they're 2 years right now, but.
Yeah, but not for long. It's a serious trouble.
So 309 is what Beaverton's at,
Yes.
and that's the highest in the state, right?
Yes.
So I guess the question
Smaller,
is.
less complicated, fewer challenges.
Yeah, so the question
More
is, are we
stable at the
willing,
moment.
we're willing to go higher than that?
Well, I think we should do it based on, some analysis of the market and the districts. And I say Paul's done a fair amount of research of Northwest districts. What was the Vancouver number again, 270?
Couple of different Vancouver districts. Evergreen, sorry?
Evergreen was 280 and Vancouver was 270. So I pulled all the superintendents in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
Small districts.
They're about 30,000.
But
Vancouver
they're not,
280.
they're not an urban school district.
What was
Where they have
Seattle?
the problem.
Seattle wasn't
308.
308.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
those are similar numbers.
Seattle's pretty comparable to what we are.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask the board to direct the task force to come up with some recommendations. And utilizing Paul's research and
And she's got some.
I agree that we want to put forward our own range. We don't want to just ask what requirements are.
Okay.
So,
Audio.
Tom, try not to do what?
Yes,
So-
go.
Okay, so someone, as you know, who's pretty involved in wanting to see equitable education for our students, I think it's really important when you are looking at these comparative salaries that you look at the demographics of the students, because Evergreen isn't the same. And so, as someone who's a fiscal conservative, the salary is way too low. And I believe firmly that if we want to see an exemplary superintendent, then we have to be willing to put that salary that is high enough, and even look at, I think you mentioned like Fairfax or somewhere, like look at districts that are more representative of the size and the scope of, and the demographics of the students that we have, because otherwise, I think there's, you'll still have some.
Paul, why don't you
Just
just
don't
share
put it
with
too low.
everyone what
But-
the point you're wanting to make?
That's
So-
too low.
So yeah,
Take it
the
over.
task force takes it over, gives
So we don't have to
recommendations.
do it.
I mean, it's
Okay.
embedded in.
Yes.
Well, we're not going to make a
Charge.
decision, we're going to come
No.
back with
Make
a.
recommendations.
Yeah, that's a recommendation.
All right.
Okay.
And
That's
we're
Paul
going to
and
get to the
Scott.
timing in a minute.
They're not going to get
I just want to go back to HYA is, so my willingness to let them go for another 30 days is based on, well, I don't have a vote anyway, but also that I think if you change the personnel, there is work that you can build on, and there is value to the board, but only if you change it, because I think we've universally heard from the community and the board members that the two assigned people were not the ones that can successfully help PPS.
Okay. Agreed.
So I want to follow up on a question from the audience. It doesn't seem like HYA did much, if any, advertising for this.
They did, I mean,
In the professional journals, you know, there was publications.
They were in professional
In
journals.
Chronicle of Ed.
And I think with the, like, National Association of Superintendents of Color, or Administrators of Color, and some of the specific, that, race-specific
Those are
organizations,
nice.
yeah.
Okay.
They did.
a fair amount.
Okay.
Would that be renewed at this point, or, and is that another expense?
It should be renewed, and they're responsible to get us somebody.
And that- but that's-
Although I
I don't
would,
know the
I think
answer
we
to
need
that.
to
Look
look
at
at the
the
contract,
contract.
whether
Yeah.
that's something, usually, that's
It's an expense.
I believe that was an
An
expense in
expense.
the contract.
and that they've expended all their expenses. Just,
Including the money for the background check,
um,
the company didn't get it.
They did say, for what it's worth, and I think that the board should consider like using something else, somebody else. They did say that if you all wanted to have another background check done, they would extend it back whatever period of time. In fact, they're looking at changing their just general procedures to get away from the 7 years and go to the, essentially from the time you become an adult. So you have the full range, that they view that they owe that to PPS if you wanted it, and there was the confidence that they would do it correctly. I think that's a legitimate question to ask whether there's.
And the other thing was, apparently, Barles Kenner did not complete a district application. Is that the usual, or is it actually, or is it helpful to have them also go through that process, completing our application? Because, I mean, what everything that they will sign that application as to the veracity of their information and all as well. So is that something that we should do in the next search? Does it matter?
Or at what point?
So I think you could probably get the result without having them actually fill out the district application, but having them sign some sort of affidavit that everything they've submitted is, true to their knowledge or better. But, so you could accomplish it.
Well, ban the box too, though.
Pardon?
I said, he's also banned the box, you can't ask him about that until they're finalists. So it depends on when you have them file an application.
Tom, can I ask a question, please? I apologize, I wasn't able to attend last Friday's meeting. But is it the task force's assignment to recommend the process that this will go through? My wife staffs multiple nationwide searches for PSU and compiled a bunch of recommendations, and I'll give them to
That's
Julie.
great.
So,
Great.
Yeah. Yes, that is.
PSU, for example, when they select their finalists, those vetoes are published 24 hours before they visit the campus, and then it becomes a public process. And as my wife discovers, calls it the endurance marathon. But they are interviewed by multiple constituencies of the university at that time. And I think one of the criticisms of our last go-around was that it wasn't transparent enough, and so I'll pass this on.
Thank you. I will say also PSU, the big advantage they have is $600,000.
No, closer to 7.
Tiny something, something I would like to throw out about the background search. Given the way the last process went and how long it took, how much ended up weighing on it, I would like to know more about the background firm and the person doing the search before the process starts.
I can send that to you tonight.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Excellent.
Eubanks and something, they do this for a lot of search firms, and they listed out all the places currently that they check, so I can send that to you.
Baker
This
Eubanks.
is,
Okay,
yeah.
we're gonna move on.
Baker Eubanks.
So the, select discussion about terms and advertising, are we gonna re-advertise? I mean, somebody's gonna sit down with the HYA and say, here's what we want you to do. If we're going to say, yeah, re-advertise, yeah, come up with a new group for us, that's more than a 30-day piece. That sounds like we're gonna stay with them.
Well, we can terminate anytime we want, just like give 30 days notice.
But there are certain logical points here, right, Julia, where we would want to ask the question and consider pulling the trigger. Yes, we take the next step. No, we're going to go with somebody else.
Yeah, have off-ramps, I think
Yeah.
is, and, I mean, I guess I can say this, but, I mean, I think on July 2nd, there'll be a discussion of the board's like, how do things go the last 30 days? And, do we have the confidence in them to do the job?
I'm going to be asking those questions before July 2nd.
Well, but we're obviously asking the questions, discussing them, but we're not going to have any authority to.
Well, yeah, except, I mean, I think we really do need to talk about process and timing, because at the task force meeting, we didn't talk about a process. We talked about, I mean, there was a kind of general, and I was on the phone, so, but it seemed to me that we were, it seemed to me that the discussion was focused on doing a big push over the next 30 days. And I want to know what that means, because I am deeply uncomfortable with the incoming board members being shut out of this process. And I kind of rushed to judgment in the space of 29 days now. 2 weeks after an election happened. So.
You're not getting, I mean,
You're here.
you're
Yeah.
here.
But I have
You're in the task force.
legal standing, I have no vote.
You don't.
Okay, but I.
Did you think
okay,
Obama
I'm
should have
just gonna-
nominated the Supreme Court justice?
He had a year. It was a year, it was not 30 days. There's a big difference between a year and 30 days. And I'm just going to be blunt. I don't think this is a decision that ought to be made by a lame duck board.
Yeah,
There, I said it.
I have to agree with.
Well, in the end, it's
I
our
have to
name
agree
that's on
with
it
Rita.
if we hire someone.
Yes, but you're not going to have to work with it, are you?
Well,
I-
I don't think any, like I said at the very beginning, I don't think the superintendent's going to come here that hasn't met all the new board members and is comfortable with the board members. They're not going to care about me at all.
And what if I'm
And
not
vice
comfortable
versa.
with him?
Then,
Then you'll have opportunity to express it.
And that will
And what difference will that make?
Well, I think that will make.
Well, it'll make a huge difference.
It'll make a difference
Because again, yeah.
Geez, I agree entirely with you, Rita, since we're just yelling out here instead of getting recognized. You're 100% correct. In fact, I just had that discussion today with a very good friend of mine about that really what we should be doing is setting up a system where we begin the process to attract people. And no decisions that have anything to do with this really in the end are made until the new board. The new board should be hiring the person, period. No questions asked. We should not even think about, and we shouldn't really be doing any interviews either. Nothing other than attracting candidates, and on July 2nd, we can start interviewing people. I won't be here, you'll be in my spot. I agree with you 100%, you're 100% wrong, I'm 100% right. I'm not gonna vote for anything that doesn't follow that. The other thing is, some of my colleagues here need to do a little reading on how these search firms actually work. And I would suggest to the new board members that they do also. These search firms are, I spent a lot of time a lot of time doing research and so forth on how these systems work. And we've already gone through all the HYA's people. It'd be crazy to have them back again to do it again. We've gone through their people, that basically these search firms, I don't care, know about HYA, be willing to guess maybe, but that's all I'm doing is guessing. They send you their people. We don't want their people, we've already seen their people, okay? We liked one of them, he was great. There's another one who was pretty good. But they send you their people. That's who they go and bring out. And so having them back again won't increase your candidates.
Whether I agree with you or not, this board has made the decision for right now not to cut off that relationship. What I'd like to focus on is process in terms of
Well,
what.
that's nice that you would like to focus on that, but I'm focusing on something else at that minute, which where you interrupted me, no offense.
I'm sorry.
That's perfectly okay.
Steve, I thought you were done. That's
Yeah,
the only
that's
reason I
okay.
spoke.
I'm just saying that to go past HYA, the situation is 30 days, yeah, fine, and you didn't want to do that, but I'm just saying you're making a huge mistake to go down the road that you're going down. At this point in time, geez, I characterize it as ignorance. No offense to anybody who's making that. I mean, that's how it's the only way I can characterize it. The new board hires this superintendent, period. No argument, no nothing. If you do anything short of that, then you really shouldn't, you really don't have to, you shouldn't be an elected official. You really shouldn't. If you vote for something other than that, you don't know what you're doing. No offense, thank you, Tom. Sorry, I'm just usually getting cut off by people on this board.
No,
I'm a little
I
testy
truly
about
didn't mean to cut
it.
you
No,
off.
that's fine, that's great. My fault. Apologize.
I don't know what our protocol is, but, because I think if we talk about process and figure out a process, the 30 days may become moot anyway.
Yeah, right.
So, there was a process that the board used in terms of public engagement, having the community body be part of the interviewing process. And so that wasn't talked about at the meeting on Friday. But we need to, I think, talk about that and figuring out, are we going to use that same process or a different process going forward? And I think we do need to have some kind of substantive public engagement in the process. And making that happen is going to take time, and I think that's going to push us past June 30th.
So, I'm an advocate for trying to move ahead, even though I'm not on the board. And I appreciate the fact that we're at the table. And the reason I'm an advocate for that is I think PPS is really in a bad spot. And I think sitting around waiting until the summertime when all educators are off, locking in on their next school year, I think there's a small window right now that something could be done. So I just think
It's worth a try.
I think another year of an interim superintendent who's not an educational leader or a community leader is going to kill PPS, and it really concerns me. And so I don't think anybody's going to get up in the morning and think, I'm going to go, I want to go lead PPS, unless we go ask people to apply for the position, and we ask them now, and we seek them out, we create our list, and we
Yes,
act
you
like.
create your list and ask to apply, but you don't hire them until after July 1st, and the new board hires them. End of story.
I'm fine with that, but if we wait
Yeah,
till.
that's right, you want to get going.
I do, and I'm really
That's not
concerned
what-
about PPS, and I think, coming off of just listening to parents and PPS and the community, they elected us to do the job. I mean, this is like one of the most important
One of
jobs. I
three
mean,
responsibilities.
how many times do we get asked about that, so.
But they also, everybody who has been elected in the last 2 years, over the course of last election and this election, we had a complete turnover of the board. And every single candidate has talked incessantly about the need for transparency. All of us have. And my question is, if we, rush through and do this quickly, how is that going to square, how is the rhetoric going to square with the action in the minds of the voters and parents and community members.
Okay, this is the second meeting, and public meeting that anybody can come to, and we can meet every week, and we'll communicate out what we're doing, but I just think people, like, this is what you're elected to do, and it's a representative democracy, it's not a democracy in that the community elected us
To make decisions.
to make decisions, and so, I guess I'm like,
Okay,
so,
and
let's get going on, just,
Okay.
I'm,
Yeah. And let's make
I'm
those.
describing what the process is, so I'm fine outlining, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do, outline what the process is gonna be. I
David.
think there should be some flexibility.
Do you have something?
I'd like to associate myself with both of these ladies in the following way. I may be one of the few people who's been involved nationally in this kind of stuff that follows this. HYA's process for advertising is entering your name and the number of kids in the school district in a group ad. I don't understand why, with everything that's been done so far, the research that's been done on existing districts who are potential recruits, as well as individuals who can be identified, and I'm working on that myself, and I've already identified one person, and I've got the prospect of others who might or might not be attractive, but I agree with Julia. You could put an ad in Education Week next week that said superintendent search reopened, and have a paragraph that then gives you time, and in the process you find out, you go after some of these people. I told the HYA person, the white-haired lady who lives in Oregon, I said, this is going to have to be recruited. This is not going to happen by just a broadcast ad. You got to go out and get this person. And if you can tell people how you're doing it,
Right.
and you can involve the people, this is the transparency part. They don't have to, the public doesn't want to edit this thing. They shouldn't have to.
Okay.
Get the ball going. You could have candidates that you're looking at. Whoever the hell's going to do the hiring, you could be looking at them this month. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
Okay,
Well-
thank you.
So we had this committee working, the community committee, that was part of the process. Is that still part of the process?
So I'm gonna make a recommendation that's only my own.
That's the only recommendation you can make.
Right, so, well, I just wanted, like, it's not
Yeah.
coming out of the task force, but I think we should remember what our charge is, recommending a process that's gonna result in the hiring of a strong and effective superintendent. And I think we should be flexible depending on the candidate. And let me give you an example, or the candidates. If there is somebody from, say, Topeka, Kansas, who's a deputy superintendent, I'm going to suggest that we do the most thorough background check, the most thorough academic check, what kind of results they had in their in multiple districts.
Of work that was actually their work.
Right, because if we don't know them, I think
Yeah.
it should be a complete vetting. If there's somebody who's a known quantity, who's been a superintendent in a district where
That's your record.
we're familiar with the results, or teachers are familiar with their results, I think it may be a different process. And
We did actually talk about that in our task force meeting, about being open-minded in approach.
But I think being
Flexible.
like, this is the process and everybody else has to fit into it, I think we will potentially lose some candidates.
So I'm specifically asking about the community interview panel. How does
Well,
that fit in with what you're talking about?
Being flexible.
I think if you be as flexible as we could, as long as we guarantee that we do not hire a superintendent prior to July 1st. And if we guarantee that, then personally, I have my opinions, but personally, I could support being flexible. We ought to get on these candidates. We ought to be pulling them in and recruiting them and stuff, but nobody gets hired before July 1st. End of story. We guarantee that. We buy 100% into that, and then we can go forward. And I think what you're talking about is excellent. What David is talking about is excellent. But not if we're not going to do that. Screw it. I'm not, no way am I going to support this board, the old board, so to speak, hiring somebody.
Let me give you a hypothetical here.
Give me any
What
hypothetical
if,
you want, but I'm never going to support it.
Julie had
You can
her,
have Matt Prophet come back from the dead, I still wouldn't support it.
Julie.
He's not dead.
All right. I know.
Likely what you're going to say, I mean, so I mean, I can envision a situation where if there's somebody that is already, I mean, somebody would need to make a decision, particularly if there's somebody that we are recruiting who has a current position, there may be a time element here, and I don't want to tie our hands.
and all 10 people around this table agree that that's the perfect choice. So, and they need to, so.
And we need to move.
So I think the whole thing is we move and we're flexible and we communicate.
So Rita gets a veto power, and Scott has a veto power, and Julie has a veto power. Anybody they don't like, we don't hire.
I know
End
where
of
Tom
story.
lives.
Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Because you said, well, then what I'm saying stands. That group of people needs to hire
No
a new
individual person
superintendent.
has a veto
If they don't have
Nobody
a
has.
veto power, they should have a veto power prior on anybody they want. I'm good for if all 10 people sitting here want to hire it, but they get a veto power and they don't hire it. And so would I if it's all 10 people, wouldn't I? That's just beside the point.
Well, I like the flexibility depending on the candidate's qualifications. That makes a lot of sense to me. Just like what Julie said, you know, if we have an opportunity and we have a time limit, we have a good candidate, let's do it.
I'm gonna go back to what Pam said at the beginning. I don't believe a candidate is gonna come here if there's opposition from the new board members.
Of course not.
Right.
So,
They do a full.
you're suggesting like an actual veto, I think in
I'm
effect.
just was reacting to what Tom said, all 10
Yeah, I mean,
people, which I'm just kidding.
I think any superintendent's gonna wanna start off on the right foot. And so, I think it's gonna be very important what Rita and Scott think about.
That's why we're all in here right
Can
now.
I just, so I just want to put this out there. It is not my intention to be obstructionist. It's not. It may seem like it, but it's not. I mean, I am a huge believer in good governance and following, certain promises were made. And this very intense period of recruiting somebody is not going to conform with the promises that were made.
What promises?
About community engagement and blah, blah, all of it. And transparency and all of that.
Whose promises? I mean, what are you talking about?
Well, the board, I mean,
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so that's-
There was
we're not
a
consistent
whole
anyway.
thing about how this was going to be, you know, this was going to be a transparent process, and there was going to be the community engagement thing, the committee and all that. And now we're talking about jettisoning all of that.
So
Okay.
I'll
And
just say.
yes, I understand, I'm looking at the calendar like everybody else. Okay, but if this board is going to do that, then you need to walk into it with your eyes open and know, I mean, you're talking to your community, I am hearing from my community. And what I have heard over the last year, and especially over the last 5 months, is that this was not a transparent process. I mean, the last one wasn't a transparent process. And they want the next one to be more transparent. And now we're talking about essentially, having no transparency. And there is going to be, I'm just telling you, you're going to do whatever you do, because I don't have a vote. But you need to know that as far as I can tell, there is going to be a reaction, and it's not going to be pretty. And it's going to reinforce the kind of distrust that we all want to get rid of. And I don't think this is the way we want to start this new year.
So we're having a public meeting right now, we had one last week, what elements of it,
It's-
I mean,
It's not
Right,
transparent.
Would that-
I think we had to answer that.
would you say would be
Let's read it.
be transparent? I mean, we're having an open discussion about the terms,
Okay,
that
you're-
contract?
Okay, I'm just going to, just from my
Right,
perspective,
I'm curious what the answer is.
you're apparently having interviews with people next Wednesday. I'm an incoming board member. I'm not invited.
Hey, I
No,
didn't even
but-
know.
No, where we have, I believe, a placeholder for a public, for a work session. What is it? Is it a work session or it's executive session? It is a placeholder. As
Right.
far as I know, there are no candidates scheduled for that
But if
at
there,
this time, but we wanted to calendar it based on the conversation that the task force had to see if there would be an opportunity.
Not Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, whatever it is. It's
But,
next
but-
week. There's,
so-
I mean, what I have heard was, I only know what I've heard.
Pick up the phone and call Tom.
no, but, so that's a good, it's a
If
good.
things like that come up, then, you
But
know,
the
you should
fact
call
that
them.
there's
We could just
rumors
tell you.
going around about this.
Always.
Well, we're addressing.
Can I finish my sentence?
Yeah.
That this was set up, that there wasn't clear communication on it. That's not transparent. That doesn't get everybody on the same page.
It's an executive, it's calendared, it's posted. What's not transparent about that?
I think the transparency
can read
issue
it.
is that whether we're interviewing candidates, and how does that fit with the timing that we're talking about?
And we're not.
But if we do have an interview, so, because I did not know from a legal perspective, and I found out today, if we want to have an executive session, and then God bless, we know, call it. If we want to have an executive session to interview somebody, that executive session can happen with these 10 folks.
Oh, can it include,
Yes.
can be closed to the public, but can
Yes.
include prospective board members?
Who- So that would be
But,
the,
so all I'm saying is, if you want to put that on the calendar as a placeholder, great. But let us know. I don't want to hear it as a rumor and have to call you up. This is something that should come out to
Okay.
everybody at the same time, so we know what's going on.
okay, so, go ahead.
So I think you all know, so I live in the Jefferson
Yeah.
cluster, and some of my kids are in different school. And so the due diligence piece, as someone just sitting back here, that's the part that concerns me, is 29 days is a rush process. And as someone who lives in a cluster that has historically not had great community engagement, my concern is, how is that community engagement going to look? Because I'm listening to all of this as someone sitting on the outside, and I'm still not hearing that process piece, and yet you only have 29 days. 29 days to go back to this firm, have them rewrite the position description, to do your salary surveys, to get that list recompiled, to identify who the persons or individuals are that are going to take that process and contact them. That's a lot to do. And you have 29 days plus a holiday, and then also how are you going to engage the community? So the transparency we're talking about is not posting a board meeting or a board work session. When we have working folks that can't come to this, transparency is the way you're communicating back to the community and then engaging them to participate in that process.
Right, and so the only thing is, I don't think we have 29 days. We have as long as it takes to do it and do it well.
But I'm hearing
Right.
it differently from the outsider, so I'm just sharing you with my perspective, and my concern is what Rita said, the blowback would be very
Enormous.
concerning if, when we know what happened in this last search and the length of time between when that finalist was identified and how long it took before we knew that that person was no longer a candidate. So it's disconcerting to think we could have someone identified, interviewed, selected, offer, signed, sealed, stamped in 29 days, including all of the stuff that you still have to start over with the process. So I'm just saying, as an outsider looking in, that is very concerning, and it does feel like there's some concern around how that community engagement transparency is going to happen.
It'll run good in that Tribune. Secret meeting held to pick candidates from West Hills people. There we go, good luck.
Secret meeting.
There's your headline, Beth.
So,
I don't think I'd write
can
that.
I,
So just to respond, we did, in the effort to keep people informed, we had the first task force meeting today. A note went out that just summarized kind of here's what was discussed, so that people had sort of here's the process is renewing again. And I think that as we look at things, I don't see necessarily the process being done in 29 days. It's just 29 days, I think, is being referenced because that's the time when they
I understand why it's being referenced.
Right.
I'm just sharing you the perspective, though, that if, just the concern that, and you know, people will see this, and just the concern that it does not feel as transparent because that process is still not defined and we're already moving to that timeline. So it was just sharing that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think it's going to be messy with a current board and then new board members, and...
Yeah, and that's not what I'm referencing again, I'm just looking at that timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that what makes it messy is if we all knew that everybody, it was the same group traveling on, it would be, we can start now and the decisions are going to continue through, and it's just, there's going to be a process that spans two boards.
reality is.
Probably, yeah.
That's the probable reality.
So,
Yes, and then I want to get back to.
I know you want to get
Yeah.
going. Each of you represent your zone, but you
No.
also...
I represent the entire city.
Well, good for you. But
and so does every board
what I'm
member
saying, you reside in a zone, and you're elected as the representative of that zone, and, but you're,
No.
but
You're-
you're voted on by the whole district. And
That's
as
not correct.
as a representative of your largest stakeholder, say for the students themselves, our people only wish to be involved in the process, see the candidates, see them being interviewed, that kind of process. That's the transparency we want. We are not wanting to be in your position that you're charged to do with making the decision. That is your task. That's the hot rock that's in your lap. And so I don't want any notion that anybody feels that the transparency means that those that attend these meetings are going to say, well, we don't want that guy, or we want this person. That's your task.
Well, I think you ought to do that, though, open process, back when we got the best we did.
We'll certainly share with you what our viewpoint is, but
People had the opportunity.
but
to
we're not
weigh
the
in.
deciders. You are.
So Tom, given what you said that you learned today about having executive session, which could, if we have candidates that could come forward in the near term, could give them some confidentiality if they need it, coming forward in the process, but could include the prospective board members, should we see if we need to set a time on the calendar when everyone is able to be part of that, and then see if,
Yeah.
I mean, again, as a placeholder?
Yeah, I think if that's.
So the meeting next week can include the new board members?
Can, C-A-N, and will.
So
Well,
we're
if they
definitely,
WIL.
can be there.
is it on their calendars?
What day is it? When is it?
Thursday, you get off of work.
It's the 8th from 2:45 to 6, and I'm just forwarding you
what it
calendar
says.
information.
It's next Thursday.
Yes.
All right. Are we going to discuss the process? Are we going to discuss the process that we're going through here pretty soon? We haven't discussed it
Yeah,
yet.
we have been, but
That's not the process, that's a bunch of other stuff. I want to know what step by step. It's a process.
we were get recommendations on Paul.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to poor Scott Bailey's original question about the community committee. And I wanted to say, from my perspective, I thought the community committee worked very, very well. I understand from some members of the community committee that they really didn't appreciate the way the HYA people talked with them, but I thought the feedback from them was very useful. Really, in my experience, highlighted some of the themes that Mike and I had picked up from the reference checks we had done. I would absolutely want to do that again.
Yeah.
I know it's a
Personally,
grueling process for everybody, but I thought it was absolutely worth it.
Are we doing secret,
I thought it was very valuable too.
secret stuff again?
I think it's valuable, but I'm thinking I would like to change it a little. I'm not sure that it's a community process with some of our staff on there. I think maybe there could be a separate,
We also, yeah, we did have.
and union.
We did have a recommendation that the staff and external community part of it be separate,
Yeah.
because the issues and places they were coming from are different.
Yeah, I think it needs.
I heard that.
Yeah. And I think the union too, I don't know if there'd be a separate place, but I think the community should be more the community and not as inclusive as it was, yeah.
So bifurcated, is what you're saying.
And are we going to talk about the process eventually? You said kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so with
Okay,
the
are
task
we doing a
force.
secret process again, is my first question. Are we doing a secret process again, behind closed doors, total secrecy, instead of like the last three candidates going out in the community and being interviewed in public? Are we doing that again or not? I'm for the candidates being interviewed, of course, because I'm always for community engagement, and I think that I've done that for years, stood up to that. I don't mind the change at the end and going to some little hole in here at the end. Would have been helpful this last time. So is the question, and that's the question, is it really secret? Appreciate how nice you've been, because I'm not nasty. I don't know. Nasty based on the negotiations. It's ridiculous.
So did the task force, did you guys talk about process at all on this front?
Send them back.
And do you
We-
want to?
We talked about the time frame and potentially if there were candidates that fit the criteria that there was interest in the board for moving ahead.
Did somebody have candidates that they want to push? Is that what this is all about?
No.
Does Amy have a couple friends or something?
No.
Because if we're all putting forward candidates,
Well,
I got 6 or 7 good ones
know
that
what?
I can start
Okay,
pushing.
it's
Let's start
interesting.
with, how about Gwen Sullivan? She doesn't have her stuff yet, but she can start working on it, and she'd be a great superintendent. I got a
Actually,
whole lot of people to
We
push.
we did talk about that, and we talked about what the role of the board members were in the process, and what people wanted to do, and there were a number of things that I think there was a broad agreement that we recommend would be roles of the board, recommend to the current board. One, prepare foundational documents, that board members would be asked to sort of identify and recommend candidates. So if you have 6 to 7 candidates, let's put them into the process. And
Paul had identified some.
So
Yeah,
what you're saying is that I can pick somebody to have us interview them? That's not what you're saying? But isn't that what we're thinking, we're not thinking of interviewing candidates directly out of that process? They have to go through another process or directly, so I can pick people to have us interview? Is that what you're saying? I'd be happy to.
so there wasn't a decision on that. My expectation would be that if there was a consensus that of the new and current board members, that was somebody that people wanted to interview, that would be, they could be put into the interview pool, but
Yeah, into
just,
the
I mean,
interview,
you know,
into the process, but not into the.
So, I mean, let's just nail that down as a process.
So
Is it
identify
the
and
task
recommend
force-
candidates, and this is.
The task force, which includes all the new and some of the go forward, will be the first screening of candidates.
Who says that?
Well, we're having a discussion.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you were making a statement, not a question. Apologize.
But as a process, so you throw Win Solomon in there,
Okay, down to where?
Well,
you know, so as an example, so
criteria.
how do we determine whether it's one or two? So the first filter is the task force, I would recommend. Go ahead.
I'm not sure that that's true. Do, I'm sorry, Julie, I'm hemming and hawing a little bit because you said something earlier.
But you're calling me, so can we clarify Julia, Julie?
Yeah.
That would really help.
I'm sorry, I thought I said Julie. Do you think that board members should be calling potential candidates to see if they are even interested?
No.
Or do you think the firm should? Okay, that was what I thought you said.
Right, I mean, I think if you're a sitting superintendent, having board members calling around is not the
Okay.
right way. But I do think, I look at people in this room and there's, people have relationships and visibility to, I think, leaders across the country. And I know just some of the names that people have mentioned already, they're people who, you know, I think there would be a consensus for us to look at. And
So does that relationship though, since this is a relationship based on national prominence, how does that play down in my district, which is District 4, where we don't have anybody down in that district that I know who's in national prominence? They maybe have a brother-in-law or know somebody, maybe. Do we have, I mean, I don't know who's going to be the big shot in my district is going to go around the
Oh,
country.
I don't mean in your individual district, it's just.
Well, I'm just saying, it seems to me like that system is kind of an unfair system to my district, in that in my district, you guys and Julie, you have contacts all over the country. I have no problem you using them. I think it's wonderful if you use those contacts. But the contacts should be put into the pool, not put forward with special little interviews, which we already have to some degree looking at and talking about and doing in the next 29 days. There should be a pool, and then once we have the pool determined at some point in time, then we choose interview from that pool. I personally have terrific problem with task force that was put together in basically a totally against district policy, making that first decision. And I have a huge amount of problem. It's a huge problem that I have. I just don't think they're the people that should be doing that necessarily.
Paul, thank you, because I don't want to jump on you, but I don't agree. There is a problem that I see with this, and I saw it with HYA. I want us to have whoever is making the call, and personally I would prefer it would be all 10 of us. Whoever is making any initial screening, we want to make sure we've got at least enough information on these people to be able to make an intelligent decision. I do not think that we had that for quite a few of the people on the list HYA brought us. So I would propose that we come up with however many names we can. We get those to HYA as fast as we can. See if there's interest. If there is, we get them more information about us and have them get us as much information about them and what they've accomplished as they possibly can, and do this instantly. Because I don't have unreasonable
And that assumes that we have a new
expectations.
point person
I think
with
that's good.
Okay,
HYA
good.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Someone who can start facilitating things for us, who are not the people who we're there for.
Right, and I think that works, Paul, and I do think who the board interviews should be a consensus of the individuals around the table. And I think we probably would be surprised if
There will be consensus. I mean, I think there would be.
Consensus means everybody, and you have already said that wasn't the case.
I'm just
It's not
saying, I think there
consensus.
will
Let's
be.
determine what it would be.
I'm just saying, I think there will be.
Okay.
Okay, so sounds like that is.
Hopefully Karen captured what Paul just said.
Yeah, okay.
What is the process? We still haven't determined what the process is. What do we need to vote on the process? We haven't even determined it.
So-
How can you vote on it?
So I heard was the process can be kicked back to committee for as quick a turnaround as we can get back through a proposal to the larger group. I heard that suggested. but not-
What about community input part of it? What is that? What about do we use the one search firm that we still have? Is that in this whole thing down the line? Or do we, what about the idea of interviews, when they'll be held, and so forth, and on and on and on about the process? We don't have a process that we can explain. Can't we have a process that we are going to go through?
Yeah.
Do we need to have a process to decide on the process?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and what is that? I mean, is that going to be?
So I
board
see it
vote or-
as a, I'll just throw it out as a two-pronged approach here. One, first of all, the task force gets back together and reviews and recommends to us a process, so we have candidates, how do they go, what's
What's the process for applying?
Right.
All that.
Number one, that's number one. Number two, at the same time, to Paul's suggestion, those folks who have names in mind, get them to HYA as soon as possible. And to get that ball rolling. And then we come back and discuss the recommendations that you guys will bring to us.
Are we doing national advertising?
They're going to come back to
We're
us.
going to come back with that.
Yeah.
But you have to decide on the process, because you got to know whether it's a secret process, like the last one, done in the back room, or if it's going to be, have some public thing in the
Right,
community.
right, all those questions.
In the room. You got to decide one way or the other. You're shaking your head, Amy, but that was what happened. It was a secret room. We didn't have any real public process. That's what happened. That's how it went. That's at least the honest.
Okay, so I think we have, does that sit well
I
with,
meant real public.
Yeah,
does that sit well with?
yeah,
you?
that's,
Well, these guys are.
I just wanted.
No, I know.
Yeah, I wanted some clarification, because there were topics that came up, and there was some head nodding, but never a, so we are agreed that kind of didn't closure.
I hear ya.
Yeah, so it would, and I've been in groups where that happens a lot, where it seems like everybody agrees, but actually we didn't have the full discussion
Yeah.
of it. So the advertising thing, because there seemed to be, we want them to do advertising. David had a good point about, well, what kind of advertising? So do we want to hold off on that in terms of a budget and what kind, and have that come out of the committee, or how do you want to?
That would be my preference.
I think somebody should call HYA tomorrow and find out what their parameters are.
What they're what?
What the parameters are, what they're willing to do within their contract.
Yeah, well, the question of who they're paying for the advertising, my guess is,
It's
that's.
us.
It's
us.
ultimately
It's
us,
us.
somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
The question is what kind of advertising, and that gets back to David's point.
and it may be that there's 8 to 10 candidates that this group comes up with that would be better than just a scattershot
Yeah.
advertisement.
Yeah.
No.
So,
Fine with you, fine with you, fine with you? Yeah, I'm going around the
Okay,
table here.
let me make sure I know what I'm
Fine.
fine with. I think I'm fine, but
Okay.
let me make sure.
Yeah.
So what I think I heard was that the task force is going to reconvene, and we're going to go through, we're going to map out a whole process. And we're going to talk about, HYA's role and how we funnel names to them and we're going to go through the whole deal. And then we're going to come back with a recommendation to the incumbent board
Yep.
for approval.
the
Mail,
task force
email it
does
to us.
include
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Email it to
but
us.
to the full board.
Yeah.
And then you guys say, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever.
I'm just saying email Rita so that we get it, and we're not sitting here trying to read it
Okay.
while we're making a decision.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so that's phase one, and simultaneously phase 1B, that's phase 1A. Phase 1B is, your understanding of phase 1B is that, do you want me to tell you? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell them their understanding.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Okay, we're board members who know people who might be good
Yes, yes.
superintendents should forward them to HYA.
That means we gotta get an HYA contact like
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yes.
So is this something where everybody just sends it in, or is this something where the board wants to review that and say we want to forward these
I
names?
think send them in, but to whom do we send them?
That's,
Julia as the chair of this task force?
I think
Or
they
to
need to
you,
go,
or-
no, I don't,
We just send them to HYA?
I think they should go to
We don't know
H.
who.
We're
gonna get
Right,
HYA.
right, so after we get that person.
Yeah.
Okay, and so since we're going to be submitting names, are we using this document as the criteria we're going to be using to evaluate the suitability of candidates?
I think
Yes.
that's a good guideline.
Well, why don't you wordsmith it and send that out to us too,
Okay,
as we
I
discussed.
guess there was like
Yeah.
90%, like this
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like directional.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted
I
to,
think HYA, I mean, the point of HYA is you send those names to them. They're going to be contacting those people to see if they're even interested.
Right.
And they may come back and say, no, we're not interested.
but
I'm happy where
as,
am.
as I sit there and go through my
Like that.
mental Rolodex, which is pretty small, by the way, but anyway, I'm going to be looking at this and.
Right, right.
Yeah, so we're not
absolutely.
going to be
Dig 'em up
submitting
and
names
call
for
it right.
non-traditional
We're gonna finish this.
candidates, or,
Yeah,
But this is a
superintendent.
successful,
Educational.
effective superintendent that we're looking
Somebody's
for.
already
Yeah.
sitting in
Of
the
a
superintendent, yeah.
district that's a,
Are we
some
just-
similarity.
So
So we were gonna pick out eligible.
are we just going to look arrogant or ridiculous? Well, let's ask all our employees also to submit names and ask people in the community to submit names to, and give them a place to submit
Whatever.
names for
You know,
outstanding
that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, it doesn't
Yeah.
work for anybody.
Send
Anybody?
them to,
So,
Put it on Facebook.
okay, so that's the plan.
Along with the description, Rita.
Yeah.
Are there any objections around the table to the plan?
Having them drop the plan?
It-
Okay. If they drop the plan, that's fine, I'll let the plan drop it, it's fine, rather than
All right. All right. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right.
So, Rita just brought up a good point, timeline, I'm a deadlines and
Yeah.
timeline person, so.
I don't do anything if I don't have to.
Well, the members, on
Just
this,
saying, just saying.
well, I would say like sort of tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah, I'll get you this tomorrow, okay.
And,
because yesterday seems a little unreasonable.
we'll, well, I think it's really close. I
I
think
agree,
It's
yeah,
really
it's
good
not,
work.
be pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's good.
Thank you for doing it.
And by tomorrow morning, I'll have a name, it may be like a ghost email box at HYA, but that, just,
Yeah.
that we can send things in. We'll draft up a communication that summarizes what we've done, and with a request for, if people have ideas that they want to share with the board, we'll figure out, if Roseanne, we can get just a PPS board
The PR guy in the back, he can get something out.
email box.
For the superintendent's work.
Yeah,
For,
Yeah,
okay. So what are we sending to
Put
the
that
task
up on,
force?
we could put that up on the website and reference it.
a deadline for the task force recommendation. What I want to do is just being respectful of everybody on the task force calendars. I want to make sure that everybody can make it, so maybe I'll send something out tomorrow morning with a sort of survey of dates and time that work for our next meeting.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
and do we want to still, maybe overly optimistic, but do we want to still keep that block of time that we have
I
everyone's
say we hold that
availability
no
for?
matter what.
We'll hold it, and if
We
it
should probably
makes
add
sense
a
to
few
use
more.
it, we'll know at that time, but yes, we'll hold it.
However, we should probably add a
There's
couple.
probably no time between that.
You never know.
For,
I can't meet.
without, maybe phone, we'll,
Yeah.
Julie's.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
Julia,
Okay.
do you know when your task force is gonna meet next?
Well, we were just talking about, we all need to check our calendars and make sure that we can make it or have a dial-in option.
Okay.
Can people come to the task force meeting?
Yep, they're,
Public meeting.
Publicly
meeting.
noticed.
How will anybody know?
Put out a-
are you on the public notice list?
Nope.
Oh, we should get you
Tell
on
those
that.
ladies over there.
The average person does not
Get
check
on the
the
public.
PPS calendar, and if they do, they
If
find
you
out
give me your email
there's
address.
nothing there.
Yeah.
Nothing on
Okay,
the board
so-
calendar, but this
Two very quick little things. One is I'm hoping we have a slate of candidates that there's a negotiation before it's down to one finalist instead of negotiating with one finalist. So that gives us a little more leverage. And second, going back to that HYA thing that we're going to give to them to rewrite, but we kind of don't have huge amounts of confidence that they'll be able to do it. I may take a swing at that. What I would suggest to do that, if y'all could send me 2 or 3, district is kind of doing really well at doing this thing to build up that asset list. And I know a couple of those things on my list, but there's stuff I don't know that's going on that's we're really kind of doing pretty well.
Look at these as an asset list.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea. So can we give you a deadline?
Yeah.
Maybe circulate something
ASAP, yeah.
over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything this year.
Okay, well,
Well, the other thing is,
Except doing my job.
it sounds like a dual track, Scott. So are you saying you're gonna rewrite something and we're gonna have HYA doing it
no,
also?
if Scott's gonna, if you get something done by mid-weekend,
Well, there was some skepticism about
Right.
that happening.
I'm just
So-
saying,
and if
let's
we
not
can-
have them do it, if you're gonna do it. Let's.
Let me take a
let's
swing
figure it
at
out.
it.
Yeah, that would be great.
And if I can't do something this weekend, then
Okay.
send it out.
so just to clarify, on the, I have already, the contracts have been negotiated. Some contracts have recently negotiated in the region, Carol's contract, and some of the work that was done on Dr. Dickey's contract. And absolutely, I think that's the thinking and would be recommended as part of the process.
Yeah.
That the district doesn't lose its leverage by negotiating after you've announced.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you, everybody.